Yep.
All right, guys, I'm here with Layke Rossiello, the founder, president, head coach, middle linebacker, outback player, swollest man I've ever met in my life. What's going on?
Just here living the dream, mate.
Are you good or are you tremendous?
Always tremendous.
Always tremendous. All right, so I want your story. Little Layke Rossiello, I think Geelong from the start, right?
Yep.
Getting into sports. What was it? What was the sport? AFL? What was going on?
I started playing AFL when I was 14. Before that, I didn't play any sport.
Nothing until you were
Nothing.
14. Why?
Nope.
What was going on? You're just working?
Because I was an entertainer, mate.
Yeah.
I was an entertainer. My mum always wanted us to be in the entertainment industry, singing, dancing, theatre shows, all that stuff.
So you're doing all that kind of stuff. So 14, what led you to AFL? Just a poster on a wall or?
No, so my brother was playing and then he said, come down and play with me. And I was like, okay. So I started playing Aussie rules. I was playing for East Belmont Lions. And then I was the bottom end. It was under 16s footy. So I was the bottom end of that. But they had no junior team and they had no under 18 team. So when I played 2 seasons of that, and then their under 16 team basically folded, and I had the choice to go and play at another club, which was Grovedale, was nearby, or I could play senior footy. So I started playing senior footy when I was 15, turning 16 at Belmont, and I made Geelong Raiders, which is like one step under Falcons, Geelong Falcons. And then I got glandular fever and basically lost a whole heap of weight, as you do, all those terrible things. And then got kicked off the squad for the Raiders. So I rushed back to playing senior footy and basically hurt myself, tore my ankle to pieces. And then so basically I was sitting there in recovery trying to get, ankle and everything right. And gridiron started, junior gridiron started in the summer of 2004. There was a new team started. Marty Jackson started the Geelong Buccaneers, and it was their first junior season. And I never played cricket or anything like that because I don't really much like cricket. And so I started playing gridiron, and that was the end of that. Never went back to Aussie rules. Been doing it ever since.
So how was that first year of football, learning under Marty? How many guys did you have? Was it just a junior team at that time? What was going on with the Bucs?
Yeah, so they had the senior season, their inaugural senior season. I think they won 3 games out of their 12 or whatever it was. Might have been 4 games, but they were not very good back then. Then it was head coach was Mark Hainison, nickname Anus. Great time, you'll love that. So he was the head coach. Marty was the assistant coach then. And I think we probably had about 30 guys. And we actually made the grand final in the first year with that team. So, yeah.
And what were you doing? Linebacker, running back?
I was actually supposed to start as a running back. And Marty come clean a few years later. He moved me to play fullback and middle linebacker because when Marty was telling my old man at a practice that, he said I had potential, my old man's response was, well, how much money do you want in sponsorship? Straight away, not, Layke must be good. It was, how much money do you want? And so Marty went, well, I'm going to make Layke quit. And basically beat the crap out of me for the rest of my junior season. And I just never quit. So, yeah.
So
pretty much how that all started.
What was football in 2004 in Melbourne, Victoria? Give me it's probably a little different.
We could, yeah. Well, Noonan was the QB all the way back then, Daniel Noonan. But it was all, we couldn't do anything. On offense, it was all just pitch right, pitch left, and throw it deep down the sideline. Pretty much all it was. Yep. Yeah. And so then defensively, we ran a 2-5 defense because no one could pass. So it was just basically 2 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers stacked in the box, and that was it. And it was just hit and giggle, as they called it back then, because it's all 9-man football.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, and we had a really, really fast running back because let's be honest, I'm not fast. And we basically just pitched the ball left and right and let him run like a crazy person. So it was Sean McMaster, I think his name was. Yeah, Troy McMaster.
So
Yeah.
how many years did you were you playing juniors?
So I played juniors. I actually went juniors and then straight into seniors.
Okay.
So I played the first junior season, then started playing seniors, hurt myself in the second game, tore my rotator cuff, hitting Sulla. Thank you, Sulla. There's a shout out to you. Giant guy from New Zealand, ruined my shoulder on a kick return. Thought I had the blindside shot on him, and at the last minute he saw me and went, no, ruined my shoulder. So I played that and I got injured there, so I didn't finish the full season. I think I missed like 6 games or something in that. And then played for Junior Victorian Eagles, then played Junior Outback, then played juniors again for the Bucks. And then I basically did that right the way through until about 2008. I think we won in 2006. 2 grand finals in a row, we lost them both, then we won 2006 juniors. Seniors, we weren't doing much. We were not very good.
So you were doing the alternate, you're playing 24, 30 games of football every single year, starting at about 16, full year round football player.
Yeah.
And seniors, what were you doing? Mostly linebacker or still fullback?
No, I was a running back. I played tailback. Yeah. Yeah, which is why I got beat to crap.
Beat to crap playing all those games in very physical style of old school football. When did you kind of start transitioning into the coaching and kind of taking over that side of things and learning that side of things?
I started coaching junior footy first, 2007. So I did my 2006 season. Marty Jackson had like a rule that when you finish your juniors, you had to give back for a year. So I went down to help mentor and stuff like that. And then he asked me to help coach, be a defensive coach. And I was like, okay. So I coached the junior team. And then I went to play seniors and they asked me to coach from 2008. So I pretty much coached defense all the way through until I started the Titans.
Mm-hmm. So when would you say that your guys' is kind of rise of the Bucks, rise of the Tide? When was that? When would you guys kind of hit that point to become the best team in Victoria?
2010. Mm-hmm. Well, so 2008 was the first time. 2008 was the first time we made finals. No, 2009 was the first time we made finals. We lost to the Rangers. And then 2010, it was just after the Nationals, AGL Nationals, and we went undefeated in the regular season. We lost the grand final, 2010. 2011, we won it. And then we went 3 in a row, losing to the Monash Warriors after that.
12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
So what was kind of the change to make the club go from a kind of a middling club, average club, to then like one of the best?
Well, we built through juniors. So we basically, because our juniors coaches were also our seniors coaches, it made it easier for players to transition. Uniform terminology throughout both programs made it really simple. And that was the success there. You know, when you're not that much of a jump when you're not having to go to a new coach. So that's really what was successful about it. Mm-hmm. And I think we had, if you look at our championship team, there's 32 players in it. I think it was something like 28 of them played juniors.
Right.
So it's pretty good. We had good retention.
What happened when you guys kind of started then 15, 16? I think those would be your last 2 years there where you kind of then went to the top and then kind of maybe dipped a little?
Yeah, age. You know what I mean? Like we had a few key people retire, and I think we, 2015, we lost to the Monash Warriors in the semi-final because officials don't know the rules. No. Christian Swan stripped the ball carrier on a kick return and ran it for a touchdown, and they called forward progression stopped. Basically, that was the winning score. So we lost because of that. And then the year after, we lost in the semi-final to the Rangers that eventually won it. It come down to a 2-point conversion, basically. It wasn't really that complicated. It was just 4 slants, and they were open. Nearly all of them were open, but the center snapped the ball too high, and, so it was late. Timing was late, and that was the end of that. So we ended up losing by a point in the semi. But it was, a lot of people started to retire. People started to get a bit old, beat up. When you play for that long, it becomes hard.
Did you find it harder to build the club or to maintain once you got to that level?
I think it was harder to maintain. We had a fair few key players retired after we won in 2011. So and they were young players too. We had key players move to interstate. Like James McFadden is one of probably the best linebackers to ever played in Australia. He moved to Port Lincoln. So the nearest team to him is like 7 hours drive away.
Yeah.
He hasn't played since. So that hurt when he left. Because you do all this work with developing guys like him, Jacob Meehan, Alex McLaren, those core people, and then they move on, retire, things like that. And when they do it young, you're not expecting that. That hurts. Yeah.
Okay, so then you're moving over to the West Coast. What led you over to Western Australia? And
family, mate.
Family, mate.
Western Australia is tremendous. You've been here, you know what it's like.
How was that transition though? Because there's a big difference from living in Geelong and Victoria to Western Australia. Even from my perspective, it's like 2 different countries.
Oh, it didn't really bother me. Western Australia is just like Geelong, but just hotter. So, and I'd already spoken to my missus before we'd come over, and basically just said that when I go over, I'm going to join the local gridiron team. I'm going to do every function there is. People fail when they do an interstate move because they stay and keep them to themselves. You know what I mean? They don't put themselves out there enough. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. So when I go over, we're going to go to every event there is. We're not going to say no to anything, blah, 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 meet people, and we'll be fine. And so pretty much that's what we did.
Right.
The first little bit, anyway.
So I basically wanted you to come play with us at the Saints, but because you moved over a little too late in the year, you ended up coaching us.
Yeah.
Effectively. And we beat the Vipers at the end of the regular season. You started, coaching some smart things, telling us to do some good things, lost to them in the grand final. Kind of what was your thought process in that first season over in Western Australia? And then what'd you do?
So it was interesting. It was interesting at the time. I got to remain very PC. So it was basically, I came over, I looked at the lay of the land over here. Obviously, the Vipers have been dominant for a very long time. I looked at why they were dominant. They had a very good power run game at the time. And and they also had the ability to pass. So you kind of look around the league and you see a hell of a lot of guys that are playing linebacker that are about 20 kilos underweight. And you're like, well, you're not going to be successful trying to stop ginormous human beings that are power running the footy at you if you're too small. So I looked at it. I looked at the culture of the clubs and things like that, and basically made the decision to just start my own instead. Sometimes it's a bit easier to start from scratch than it is to try to rebuild a program.
Because there definitely was a fear playing in those championship games against the Vipers when playing on the Saints. How did it was yourself, by yourself in a state you don't know anybody, with a wacky idea to start a gridiron club. Where do you start? What did you do? How did you start finding people, collecting, to having the biggest club in maybe the history of Australia football that very first season?
It all comes down to planning. Like, I've been around football for a very long time, and when I first came over to Western Australia, I was helping coach the Saints, and I couldn't even find where the games were being played. There was nothing on social media. There was nothing on the internet. I would ring around 3 or 4 people to try to find out what the game was. And I'm just like, if I'm struggling to find it and I'm in the football community, there's no world where anyone else outside of the football community knows it exists. So I basically just went on, I contacted the council and everything first, because if you don't have council support in your area, you're wasting your time. This is where people go wrong. I've seen it in the past. I was obviously part of the big growth phase through Gridiron Victoria when they went from 2010 to having only 6 clubs to 2011 and they had like 12. So I was part of that. And one of the biggest problems I saw was people would basically start the ball rolling, grow the club, advertise it, do all these things, but then their local council goes, well, I don't have a field to give you. So the very first thing I did was contact the city of Swan and basically ask, is there somewhere that I can go? And they said they were really accommodating. It was, they basically gave me 2 options. One was out in Allenbrook and one was here. Allenbrook was the AstroTurf field, and it was built by the soccer, FIFA, or whatever it was. So we were never going to be the premium club there. That was never going to happen. So the other option was Stratton, where we are now. So I knew that once I had the council support and I had the letter of support from them, that the rest would really be easy. It just became a matter of starting the incorporation, or not-for-profit incorporation, doing all the brand guidelines and all that side of stuff, getting the club actually set up, and then just applying for affiliation with the league. And when you've already got your brand guidelines done, your uniform done, you've already got the council that says, yes, you can have a field, it's very hard for a league to turn around and go, no, we're not going to give you the ability to try. And so once they give me the green light that, hey, yes, I think it was at the May meeting of 2017, wherever it was, they said, yes, you can try. I already had the Facebook page built, Instagram page built, it was all sitting there on private, and basically already had the first month worth of promotional material I was going to use, and pretty much invested, you know, 4 or 5 grand of my own money just to go whack. And the rest kind of just took care of itself. It snowballed. I think the very first post had 60,000 people see it. So when you've got that sort of, you know, traction straight away, it makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. So what was your realistic expectations with, I mean, we brought Jack over, who'd played before, and Tristan, and Carlin, but I think he was maybe 19 at the time, and me, and then and you. But outside of that, I don't think anyone really played football before. And then you went.
I didn't bring anyone across, Ty. Let's get that straight. I brought no one.
Jack brought himself. Jack brought himself across, and then he dragged Tristan and Carlin down.
He dragged everyone. No, so
we know how Jack can be. That's too long of a podcast to talk about Jack Kerr's brain.
Yeah. So look, honestly, I did not. I thought we would do really well, right? I did think we would do well, and then we put the shoulder pads on for the first time, and you and I looked at each other and went, oh dear God, what have we done? It was not good. Yeah, that was the uh-oh moment. But, you know, we had some really good athletes that came down. Obviously, Jake Taylor came down that first year, George May. There's a lot of guys from that first season that are still playing now. You know, Max Fuller come down. He brought his family with him. You know, it was good. It was really, really good at the time. You know, first year was huge, and it just snowballed. You know, it snowballed. So, yeah.
Where do you think other clubs can kind of go wrong with that, keeping talent around, building around their current talent, that kind of thing? Where do you think they go wrong? Because obviously sometimes in the setup with their support, like you talked about, what's other prices?
Look, I won't necessarily say it goes wrong. They go wrong. I just think it's different philosophies, right? So to me, someone comes down to play football, so let them play football. Teach them football, get them doing football straight away. Our very first practice, we had, you know, full scrimmage. You know, granted there was no helmets or shoulder pads, we had it straight away. We did the very minimum we needed to do, taught them 3-point stances, over under fronts, cover 3, and inside zone, and 1 pass concept. The very first practice. and we pretty much, I think, we slide protection, towards full slide protection, the very beginning. And we had people doing full scrimmage immediately. And so to me, I think that's important because, yeah, you're getting people into it straight away. They don't know if they want to invest the money in playing the sport until they've actually played the sport. So to turn around and say to someone, well, it's going to cost you $900 to play the game you've never played before for the very first time, and then all you've done is do drills and skills where they don't understand. You need to sit there and teach them rips and swims and pop drills and hit tackle bags and hit and drive on bump sleds. And it's just, they don't understand why they need any of that stuff. So it's really hard to win someone over. And I think that might be where, if you're going to say why people go wrong, I think that's the reason they go wrong. Mm-hmm. Too much focus on nitty gritty technique stuff, as opposed to just teaching them how to play the game. Let them fall in love with the game and then let them come to you and ask about the nitty gritty stuff. You know, why am I getting beat here? Why does the guy reach block me? Well, it's because you're lining up in a 4 technique instead of a 5 technique. That's why you're getting reach blocked. You know, those sorts of things. You get to have those conversations with people that want to learn it instead of just jamming it down their throat and hoping that something sticks at the beginning. I think that might be where some clubs are going wrong.
Do you think it helped develop the club that you were injured the first year and had to just coach entirely?
Yeah, I do, honestly. Like, definitely injuring myself, as much as it sucked, was a blessing in disguise. Yeah, thank you, George. So, yeah, because it enabled me to sit there and then actually fine tune everything and really, you know, focus on what we were doing well and build on what we were doing well and basically eliminate what we were doing bad. Like most of the time it was, especially on defense, it was us trying to do too much. You know, people being too confused by having too many things going on, and it's just like, well, look at what we do well, stick to that and cull everything else out. You know, and I wouldn't have been able to do that had I been playing, because, you know what it's like. You end up fixing a lot of problems by accident. You know, guy doesn't keep contained, so you do it for him, and so you never notice these little things. Mm-hmm. You know, thinking too much about footy as opposed to coaching footy.
Okay, the two, I think, problems that clubs talk about the most everywhere in the world. One, numbers, and two, how you keep guys playing. Because I'd say we almost have guys in the 4 years of the Titans who have left the club not to play for another club, but just left the sport. You could maybe make another grand final level team of those guys. So how do you keep guys in the sport?
Look, the first season of the Titans, we had 86 senior men. Mm-hmm. The second season of the Titans, we had like 50. Now, the vast majority of the people that quit from the first season quit the sport. Now, they either quit the sport because of work, they quit the sport because they didn't like the sport, because it just wasn't for them. They tried it, they didn't like it, or they quit the sport because they realized that it hurts. Yeah, you might, at the end of the day, you might be wearing helmet and shoulder pads and it still hurts like a bitch to play this game. So that is what I think pushes a lot of people away. If you don't care about your own body, if you're a glutton for punishment and you like the sport, you'll hang around, you'll do it for years. And there's nothing you can really do. You can't turn someone that has a low pain tolerance and turn them into something relevant. You know what I mean? That's what I think, because it hurts no matter what. You know, I think people forget the fact that even as a tackler, you go in to make a tackle, it still hurts. It still hurts you, and it still hurts them. I think they don't realize that, you know? So, and that's why I think it's, you can't force someone to hang around. All you can do is continue to attract new people that might be the right type of personality to hang around.
So
it's as simple as that.
What would you say the perfect number is for a Australian football club or one of these international football clubs? Because obviously the 90 or whatever we had the first year was probably too much because we couldn't really get everyone the reps they needed. We couldn't really develop everyone. What's the number?
Any less than 25, you're in trouble, and any more than 45, I think you're in trouble. That's what I think, because it's really hard unless you're doing a really good job of managing rotations, or unless you don't care about winning or losing. Then it's really hard to get everyone the reps that they need in order to maintain, for them to be satisfied. If you've got less than 25 people, then you're not going to win the battle of attrition. So, you're screwed. You're 2 injuries away from being a bottom team or not even building a team. So I think somewhere between, 30 and 40 is a good number. That's what I think. As an amateur team, that's where people are playing to participate. Yeah. Obviously, if you've got a professional team or a semi-professional team and people are not paying to participate, then you don't care how many reps they get. Yeah. You're there just in case someone that's better than you gets injured. But when you're dealing with amateurs that are paying to participate, you have to manage their expectations. And that can be really difficult when you've got, over 45 people.
How do you stay patient? So I remember one day I was throwing out routes to like 10 new kids, and I would just like hit them in the head, bounce them off their chest, bounce them in their knee. They trip when they run the route. You're over there with kids who are falling out of their 3-point stance and sticking their butt in the air. And Travis looked at me and said, how are you guys doing this? And I was like, you should have seen me year one, dude. Like, so where have you, how have you developed your ability to just stay so calm and see where people can grow to when some of us can't see that them becoming a contributing player?
Look, obviously that's just experience. That's just time doing it. Like, I had a really good teacher in the beginning, like Marty, and was brilliant in the beginning at being able to take the kid that cannot do a 3-point stance because he's a hunchback and has no leg strength, and being able to get him into a 3-point. And so just watching that and watching the patience that he had towards his players, I kind of learnt from that. At the end of the day, I always keep in the back of my mind that people are not intentionally trying to be bad at football. People are not intentionally trying to fail whatever technique you're teaching them. You just haven't connected with them in the right way. And like there are some people that you can yell and scream at, and they relish that and they suck that up and they come back for more. And then there are people where you've got to criticize, quietly and compliment loudly and tell them that they're the greatest ever, even though they don't know right or left hand. Like you've just got to identify the type of person and the cohort. And Rome wasn't built in a day. So
yeah. What is
you have to love what you do, mate.
What's the future of the sport in Australia? What are the next steps it takes? Where's it going?
I think that with live stream becoming more dominant now, and cheap enough to actually put on a quality live stream product, I think that more clubs, and leagues starting to get around that will help drive the sport forward. But like anything, it still comes down to the leadership, and there's still a lot of old heads floating around leagues all over the place that don't want to either get out of the way or get on board. Mm-hmm. If you sit there and your glass half empty all the time, then nothing's ever going to grow or change or whatever. But, I think that with social media, with more people leaving mainstream sport as well, a lot of the contact being taken out of sports like Aussie rules and has helped a lot. So I think it's positive. I think it's on the way up. But, in 30 years of football, the number of participants nationally has really never been over 3,500 in a season. So, who knows?
So with all these other countries I've played in, there's in essence a national league. Mm-hmm. And then there's kind of these regional state leagues underneath them. Yep. The National League is always semi-professional or professional, with the other lower tiers as such. Do you think that's something Australia should ever go to or would ever go to? Or is the current model best for the sport in Australia?
I believe the current model is best for the sport in Australia because it's distance, right? So it costs a lot of money when the AGL happens every, biannually. It costs, $1,500 in order to participate in that. That's to play 3 games of footy and fly wherever you got to fly to and all the rest of it. It's just the logistics of it at the moment. It's too expensive. I think that there needs to be more focused on the grassroots, building the leagues up before you even look at a semi-professional or professional competition. Until you've got a point where you've got enough people actually wanting to come and watch football, until the actual product itself is better, a better quality product, then you're wasting your time. So I think they just need to be focusing on growing grassroots. Gridiron Victoria have got their head switched on, like they're doing really good things there. They got the junior varsity comp, which is under 15s, and they got the Colts comp, and they got the women's and the men's, and there's 14 clubs, whatever it is there, and they're doing a lot of really good things. And I just think people need to start focusing a bit more on their model. Stop being so, where you're not in Victoria. Like, well, take some notes from one of the best leagues in the country, start to funnel that out. You know what I mean? Yeah. But
Is it so clearly you're a little frustrated every once in a while with that kind of a thing. Do you feel like there's almost 5 or 6 different states running kind of their own thing rather than one uniform way going forward?
Yeah. Gridiron Australia's whole job is to govern. Gridiron Australia's job is to actually govern something.
Right.
Let's just leave it at that. Like, at the end of the day, they need to be more involved in what's going on. Their basic statement is that we don't like to get involved in the day-to-day operations of the leagues. Well, what do we pay you for?
Yeah. What is it? Yeah. What was your biggest takeaways from being on state teams and being on the Outback team? And you have played kind of the highest level of football in Australia. How was that different to club football for you?
So I did the old model of my original state was, you go away to the camp and it's a week-long camp, and that was really, really good. You lose a week of work and sucks to play 3 games in a week and all that stuff. But I think that that consolidation of all the clubs all the leagues into one location for a tournament works a lot better than this fly-in, fly-out thing that they're doing now. I'm not really about that. I did that. The first year of doing that was just, it sucked. Like, you're talking about a 36-hour round trip to go from bloody Victoria to play New South Wales in New South Wales. By the time you've left at 4 o'clock in the morning and then waited for the nighttime flight to get back, that sucks. But the actual playing, the on-field experience is really good. I think everyone needs to do it at least once, so they can get to that higher level. It's a lot different. You and I have talked about it in the past that in every team there's 4 or 5 A-class players, and then the rest of the guys are kind of, you trying to get them either to be an A-class or you're trying to get them, to a level where they're serviceable. When you get to that state level, it's like, the majority of the people are A-class players from everywhere, and you've got to be really switched on to it. It was the same as when I went to the World Cup. Obviously, you're playing against the best in the world. We played against USA, Mexico, Germany, and Austria. We got flogged by everyone except for Germany. We almost beat them. But I believe that our coaching staff was completely underprepared for that campaign. We got to the game against, we'll run a 3-5 defense and spread inside zone offense. And you're playing that when you don't have fast human beings, where the whole offensive system is designed around having your best athlete against their best athlete and having him be better. And, well, our best athlete isn't better than their worst athlete. So, you kind of do before you even start. 3-5 defense was a struggle as well. And so we end up getting to the game against Germany, and they realised that 3-5 wasn't working, so they went to a 4-3 and a 3-2 defense. And the way they called that was a coach on the sideline holding up a A4 piece of paper with 3-2-L written on one side and 3-4 over written on the other. And so their coach was standing on the sideline looking across the field going, oh, they're in 32L. Well, we're going to power on the ball against this. And so they were completely unprepared, I think. And yeah, that was, the hugest difference about playing at that level is the level of coaching.
Okay, my next question, I got to ask it just because it's, I don't know if it's controversial, but me and you kind of have been the head of it. When I was first introduced to you, they said, yeah, that guy over there, that's Layke, and that's Noonan, the quarterback, and that's the Bucks, and they hate imports. They hate Americans more than anyone in the world. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So one year we kind of didn't have anyone. We had Roman for a bit. The next year we had Fred and Zach and Travis and a couple other guys for a bit. Then since then, I left. Trav's kind of been the only one who's been down there. Where are you with imports, like what they do for the club, what they don't do for the club, how they can best be used by these different teams? It's a big topic.
So, okay. The reason why everyone says we hate them is because we didn't know it was a thing. So we're getting into the glory years of our club. We've made our first grand final ever and we lose. There were no imports then. We play the second year against the Croydon Rangers and we win. We get to the third year, we have an undefeated season. We rock up in the grand final and 3 of their offensive linemen are American guys we've never seen before. And a receiver is an American guy I've never seen before. I'm like, what is this? And they play those guys both ways. And we're like, this is strange. We get to the year after that, and we basically similar thing happens like this. What's going on? Then we find Euro players. We're like, hold on a fucking minute here. So, the glory years of the Bucks essentially have been taken away by something we didn't know existed. Now, had there been open and honest discussion about, hey, this is Euro players, we're bringing in Americans because we're trying to help grow our club, trying to build the knowledge base, all of those things, then it would be completely different because we'd be aware of it, and then more for us for not taking advantage of that resource. So, that was where the bad taste started from. And then when I got over here and I realized that it was very similar here, everyone had their imports, however many it was, blah, blah, blah. And I went, well, the only way that I'm going to be able to be competitive here is to do the same thing or get a rule in place that controlled how many you could have and then import to the rule. Otherwise, we were never going to be successful.
Right.
So that's when I went, well, let's see what we can do. And we brought guys in, and some were really, really good and, helped coach the guys and developed a lot, some not so much, and it just comes down to having the right guy at the end of the day. It's not just about saying, oh, I want to get an import, but it's having the right one. What is he going to benefit? How are you going to benefit? How's your club going to benefit from that? If you're bringing people in and they're essentially just coming here for a party and they don't rock up to practice at all, then what are you getting out of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not that I dislike imports, it's I didn't like how it was done originally, and now I can see the benefit of it if you have the right guys. But it's like anything, you can have anyone come down to the club and just do nothing but create problems. It doesn't matter if they're an American or Australian or what. It really makes no difference.
No, it just needed a rule. Was my only thing. The only league in the world that didn't have a set number.
There are still leagues in Australia that don't have a set number.
Which is ridiculous, which doesn't make any sense. How do you feel? So this is also something I've seen is you're very knowledgeable about football, but you have this Australian accent that you're saying the football knowledge with. How do you deal with, you're not trying to prove your football knowledge to these guys, but you're saying something, it's correct, but because of your accent, they might be thinking, what does this guy know?
Story of my life. Look, at the end of the day, how many arguments did I sit there and have with Travis that come to exactly the same conclusion at the end. And we've got Tristan sitting there saying, "You stupid idiots, you're both arguing the same thing." He just wants to be able to say that he's right, and you just want to be able to say that you're right. And I'm like, I don't even care if I'm right. It makes a difference, you know. You learn from everyone. But end of the day, I think football's football. Universal language, doesn't matter who's speaking it. So it's just, you've got to take something from everyone.
Yeah. What are your goals with the Titans? What's the ultimate goal? Where you want to keep going with the club? You personally and with the Titans.
I want to win 5 at least.
Yeah.
I got 2. I want to win at least 3 more. But look, the Titans has always been, I just want people to come down and get involved in footy. It's as simple as that, right? And whether we win or lose, to me, I want to win. I'm competitive like that. At the end of the day, if there's something to win, I want to win it. But it's about getting as many people into the sport as humanly possible. And that's all I'm trying to achieve with the Titans. Some people might not agree with the way that we do things. That's on them. It's not on me. I don't care. But you won't find too many people that come down and say they didn't enjoy themselves at the Titans. They might leave because they want to get more game time. But, there are people that leave and then come back. And it's always open arms. Anyone can go. As long as they don't leave the sport, I don't care. 20 people could contact me tomorrow and say they're going to go down and play for the Curtin Saints. Well, all credit to them. I'll shake their hand. I'll ring the coaches down there and say, hey, here's 20 people that are coming to you. It makes a difference to me. I want to win a lot, obviously.
Would you have done anything? So I saw you say, so you were 1 for 5 with the Bucks, 5 grand finals, you won 1, 2 for 4 so far, 4 grand finals, 1, 2 with the Titans. Yeah. And you said if you knew then what you know now, you'd have more in Victoria. So what would you have done differently? What do you know more now that you could run a better club?
Not necessarily running a better club. It's running a better, being able to make on-field adjustments better. I've learned a lot more about the game, and I don't feel like I put my players in positions to win as often as I should have, looking back at some of those games. Like back in the day, it was all cover 1, send 5 or 6, cover 3, basic cover 3, or, cover 4 if it's 3rd and long. Like it was really, really basic footy. And I never understood assignment by alignment. I always look at footy and it's like it's X's and O's and you stand here and blah, blah, blah. And I never looked at anything like, if I need to be closer to the field side as a middle linebacker because I'm running cover 6 and they got twins over that side, well, I can call an under front, which moves me closer, that sort of stuff. Back then, I didn't understand that side of footy. And I think that had I had the knowledge of football that I have now back then, we'd have won a lot more. So I didn't even run a cover 6 then. You know what I mean? Like,
Great coverage.
Yeah, great coverage.
If I was going to say I'm hiring you for an NFL job or a college football job, what's your coaching philosophy? What would you kind of say your coaching philosophy is?
Bend but don't break. As simple as that. Bend but don't break. Very few teams can put together or can execute a 12 or 15 play long drive on offense. Mm-hmm. Very few. So bend but don't break. And what I would do is I'd focus on teaching the guys on the field to understand more about down and distance and situational footy. Mm-hmm. It's all well and good. Hey, yeah, I can rush 6 or 7 on a play and hope and pray it gets there, or I can stuff around sending 1,000,001 bloody line stunts and all that sort of bullshit. But at the end of the day, if your guys don't understand fundamental football, then you've got problems, right? So, you look at us, I don't think I've sent a single blitz in 3 West Bowls. Mm-hmm. Not one. Because I don't need to. You know what I mean? Why? We're not going to lose the game. We're not going to lose the game, because we're not getting enough pressure on the QB. You know what I mean? Like, give him time to throw the footy and we'll just sit there and do what we need to do. make him throw in the cover 6, make him throw in the cover 4, that sort of stuff. So that, I guess that's what I'd be if I was defensive coach is bend but don't break. If I was coaching offense though, I want to punch someone right in the mouth. We're going old school, smash mouth footy, mate.
Because you did win, you won. So 2 years ago, we ran 5 wide for an entire championship. We didn't have a running back. We didn't really run one place. And this year, you ran the ball. So how do you deal with that? You just took a lot of breaths 2 years ago because it wasn't what you wanted to be doing, but you sucked it up, or?
No, it's just you gotta play to your strengths, right?
Yeah.
Like there was no world anyone was running the football against the Vipers' defensive line 3 years ago.
Right.
They're some of the biggest humans on the planet. It was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if you were trying to double team their bloody one tech defensive tackle, you still were not moving him. It didn't matter how big your humans were, you're not moving that man up the line of scrimmage. So like, why stuff around and try to beat a dead horse is not going to happen. And had I felt that we were not able to run the football this year, then we wouldn't have been running the footy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched 100 hours of film the week in the lead up to the championship game. I went to practice on the Wednesday night. I implemented what I thought would work. It did not work at all. Had bloody mental breakdown. Then I woke up at 2:30 in the morning on Thursday morning and just went, I've got it. I know how to win. Sit there, pen and paper. You know what I mean? And it was running the football, and it was all off tackle run, and that sort of stuff. So you got to look at what your strengths and weaknesses are, and play to them. And that's what I picked up. Big difference. You don't even try to enforce something that isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Maintain possession, mate.
Have you built a more physical football team each kind of in the year 4 versus year 1? Is it a more physical football team, or is it just a smarter football team?
A little bit of both, mate, to be brutally honest. Yeah. I think in the first year, the boys are a little bit shocked, which rightfully so. It's their first season, what is football? But then with experience comes confidence. Mm-hmm. And so they are playing more aggressive. Like if you look at Matt P from season 1, the linebacker, to now season 4, the guard, is a significantly different human there. He's now nasty and everything you want in a guard. As a linebacker, not so much. So, it's just, we have obviously gotten smarter because with experience, but we have got more aggressive as well, which I like.
Okay, so you did say earlier that it was harder to stay at the top, but also we were facing, in essence, an Alabama of a thing where we were looking at kind of the whole league was a one team. How do you try to look at that and try to overcome reaching that level of a team there?
Overcome reaching
the Vipers. The Vipers were so far ahead of everybody else. How do you look at that? Think I can actually take down this giant?
A lot of film, mate. It's a lot of film. Look, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, right? It's as simple as that, and it's just a matter of finding what that is. You start watching film, and the first time you watch a game, you're like, okay, they run cover 1 man and they rush 6 on every play. By the time you watch that game the third time, you're going, well, every time their defensive end is rushing, he's got his inside foot forward. Every time he's just doing a contain rush, he's got his outside foot forward. And you're starting to pick up keys like that. And that's the thing. So the more you watch, the more you pick up strengths and weaknesses, the more you pick up, scheme, things that they're doing. How do they adjust? What do they do if I put a tight end out there? Do they move the contain guy to leave him in a 5 technique and roll down a safety, or do they bump him out? Things like that. And so I did a lot of film study to identify those things, and then basically just, attacked their scheme. So, but at the end of the day, the Vipers are a powerhouse football team. They were for many, many, many years, and I've no doubt they will get back to that sort of level again, right? But I don't think my aspiration as a club is to not become that sort of powerhouse. I know that kind of sounds stupid, but when you get to a point where you're winning every week by 80 points, there's no fun in that.
Right.
So like if you have a look at our YouTube channel now, every single game the Titans have ever played is now up there on the YouTube channel for anyone to watch. Like, scout us. You know what I mean? Like, you need to bring along everybody else so that the quality of football can get better. Otherwise, if you just sit there beating everyone up continuously, next minute we're getting forfeited 7 out of 14 games a season. Where's the fun in that?
Right.
So, you know, we need to be bringing everyone else along as well.
Right.
And so, yeah, so that's a big focus for me this off-season, is trying to help as much as I can develop everyone else as much as us.
Exactly. How many more years are you going to play football?
Ask my missus. I'm retiring now. I don't know.
You were retiring like 4 years ago. We asked her.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I play it by ear. I'm still waiting for someone to come and take my spot.
Yeah. All right. Deal.
Someone do it. They can have it.
So you're obviously you're very defensive minded. What's the best defense you ever played on?
The best defense I ever played on with personnel, or the best scheme?
The best club level defense you had, season, year, team, scheme, all together.
Ooh.
Who's the one you think back and say, this group?
Our 2011 defense at the Bucks is very good. But our defense this year at the Titans is very smart.
Yeah. So
it's a tough one. It really is a tough one. I don't want to upset too many people because I'm going back to the Bucks to play this year. So, but look, it's different types of footy. Okay, so 2010, 2011 defense at the Bucks was really a lot of blitzing, you know, rushing, you know, 5-6 a lot, and it was really trying to wear people down and put a lot of pressure on the QB, and that was a lot of fun, right? But this defense that I'm in now is not. So a lot of zone coverage stuff. It's, you know, and it's not as much rush in the QB, but I think we're more sound in the passing game. You know, it's different times. So that back in 2011, it's all power run, all of it. Everyone was, you know, friggin' 20 personnel, 21 personnel was still power run footy. And now it's all spread and throw that bitch deep, you know. So it's hard, mate.
What's the best team you ever been on then? Club level.
Oh, mate. Oh, can't say.
Can't say. Piss some people off, Layke.
Politically correct. Look, you know, like the Bucks team, I played with that group of guys for a very, very long time. Coached them, came into, you know, senior footy. And the 2011, 12, 13, that whole series there, football is like, I've got a lot of close friendships and stuff in that team. So for enjoyment of playing with like-minded people, I will say the Bucks. But for what we've created in such a short amount of time at the Titans and what we're continuing to build on, I think that's getting very close. It's getting very close. We're almost there.
Way too politically correct for you. 2011 was your favorite season you ever had?
Probably, yeah.
And when was, if we time machine, like there's peak Michael Jordan, what's peak Layke Rossiello football player? What season? Not 86 kilo safety, like wasn't that guy?
The one where you got me broken. Thanks, Ty.
You were going to be a good safety, though.
Probably 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably 2010. That was when, like, 2010, 11. Yeah, no, actually, no, I'd probably say 2012. 2012. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Last question. You play the most physical position on the field, both sides of the ball, 2 seasons a year for many of those years, and at least like 16 game seasons, which is not like a lot of these other countries. How do you keep from just completely breaking? and what have you hurt, and how do you keep yourself from getting so hurt? A lot of guys by your age are done.
Massage, chiropractic. No, look, mobility, flexibility, and mobility. At the end of the day, like, yeah, it's really hard to break something that stretches a lot. Simple as that. And so, yeah, I do a lot of mobility work. Yeah, shitload of mobility work.
I think you just have that from your dancing days.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know why you stretch like that as a guy.
Hey,
most dudes don't stretch like that.
So that's it. That's how. If you've got issues with injuries, soft tissue injuries, stuff like that, just become more flexible. Simple.
Yeah.
But if you look at all the list of injuries that I've had over my years, and it's been a lot, it's all been, joint failure or bone failure. Very rarely. Like, I haven't done a hamstring until the Titans preseason practice the first year, and a hamstring against the Saints this year.
Yeah.
So so soft tissue injuries I haven't really done a lot of. Touch wood.
Knock wood. Yeah, keep knocking wood. Anyways, thanks for coming on. Layke Rossiello, the most recent 2021 West Bowl champion for the Swan City Titans. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ty. Look forward to seeing you soon, mate.
Calm down.